That's my thought about it. I appreciate this other bill. I'm opportunity to introduce him all week. I appreciate him. I think he's an evangelist for the times we live in. I appreciate it tonight. Brother Calvin Ray, welcome tonight.
I tell you, I owe Larry a tremendous amount of thanks. It's troubled me every night when I finish preaching. I always thought as I looked at my watch that I had finished 10 minutes earlier than what your clock said when I was done. And then I realized I set my watch by Scott Porter's watch, and I'm on Carter County time. Always 10 minutes later here than it is there. That's probably because it's farther east, and that's where we come from. Great to be with y'all. Merry heart doeth good like medicine. If you're happy, tell your face about it tonight. Lord's been good to us, hasn't He? So good to us. It's been great to be with you. Wonderful week, and thank you again for all of your hospitality, all of the food every night, the fellowship, those that work to bring in the different groups, and all of your musicians and your choir. Thank you so much. And again, I know that he doesn't say a lot during this week. He kind of soaks it in, but I do appreciate your dear pastor and his wife. Thank you. I haven't made a mess out of things for you in the morning, so you'll be able to get it all straightened out after that I leave. We appreciate your pastor. I was talking to him there before service about how many years he's been here now, and I'm glad that this church has stood behind him and continue to stand behind him, and the Lord will bless you for doing that. God's given you a heart of love, and we're just so thrilled with all of the visitors that have come in this week. It's almost every night like we've had a new crowd of visitors that's come in from different places, and a lot of them have come for a long distance, and we do appreciate you. I want you to turn to Psalm 68. Psalm 68. You listen fast and I'll preach hard and give you a few points that God gave me. And I don't know, maybe others have already seen this, and you've even maybe heard this text preached on, but it's what the Lord laid on my heart for this evening. 68th Psalm, beginning with verse 1. Psalm 68 and verse 1. Let God arise, let his enemies be scattered. Let them also that hate him flee before him. As smoke is driven away, so drive them away. As wax melteth before the fire, so let the wicked perish in the presence of God. But let the righteous be glad. Let them rejoice before God. Yea, let them exceedingly rejoice. The first three words I focus on tonight. Let God arise. You know, I'm one of 7 kids, and when I was raised, a family of 7 wasn't a large family. I know that's hard for you to believe. The neighbors right down the road from us had 19 children. We were a small country family. One said, why do they used to have such large families? Free labor. Some of you have been there, I can tell. We have one dear lady in our church. She raised 18 children, and she's in her 80s now. But if she was here, you wouldn't believe that she's past 80 years of age. Large families were common, and if you weren't raised in a large family, I'm not being critical. I'm just saying there's some things, if you didn't have a large amount of siblings, you may not understand what I'm about to say. But you know, during that time, very seldom did the women work outside the home. You couldn't work if you had that many children. It was a full-time job taking care of the kids. And, but the man was the provider, went out and worked, and then when he would work long and hard, I remember my dad would put in so many hours, so many hours. It wasn't that he neglected us. It's just that since the mother took care of the home and took care of the children, the man had to work even longer hours to provide for the family. When my dad would get home, every now and then, he'd get just a few minutes to sit down, to rest for a very short period of time out of the day. I don't remember my dad resting much at all until he got older and wasn't able to go like he used to go, and he would rest a little more. But I'd seldom see him rest much at the house. But when he would sit down to rest, invariably, me and my brother, 18 months older than I, we'd start. And then the others would join in. Nothing bad, just fussing around, making noise. You know how brothers and sisters are. Dad would sit there for a little while, and he'd look over and he'd say, "Kids, settle down." And we would for about 2 minutes and start back again. And then he'd get a little more stern. He'd look at us and say something like this: "Don't make me get up." Does anybody associate with what I'm saying? Now, I don't know how it was in your house, but Dad generally would say 3 times. He would say, "Don't make me get up." But after the 3rd time, if we didn't shape up, Dad got up. And when Dad got up, business picked up in the Evans household. I don't know how it was where you were raised. That's the way. Well, I remember one time he said to us, to me and my brother, said, don't make me get up. And the next thing I knew, he was up. And I was crying before we ever got in trouble. He said, "What are you crying about?" I said, "You didn't wait 3 times." I'm glad I'm preaching to common folks that understand where I come from. Do you know what he was saying? Enough is enough. And you've got to understand, as a child of God, you're going to face a lot of things in life. And sometimes you may even wonder, where's God at in the middle of all this? But every now and then the Lord looks down on us, says to our enemies, "Don't make me get up." And when God gets up, let God arise and let his enemies be scattered. You know, I got amazed by that at the times in the Bible where you read about when God gets up. Things that happen. What happened? Well, when God gets up, Satan is cleared out. In fact, the text in the 2nd verse says, "As smoke is driven away." I live in a valley just right down below our church, and in the valley there we've got some neighbors that I don't know where they get all of it, but they seem to get an unusual amount of wire, and they want to burn the insulation off of it. None of y'all have neighbors like that, I see. Well, they found a good place. The state came in, and there's a creek between me and the church, and there's a great big concrete culvert in there. Enormous culvert. And they build a fire there about every day. And since that's rubber on the outside of those electrical wires, it puts off black smoke. And I happen to have some problems, and I don't breathe real good when there's black smoke in the air. And sometimes I think when the humidity gets high and that smoke gets to going, that's almost like a furnace under that culvert. And that black smoke, it rises so far, but then it settles right back down. And it's so thick sometimes. You know, I could go out there with a can of Renewsic and spray all I want, and it won't do a thing. I could go out there and say, "Get away, smoke," and it wouldn't do a thing. I could take one of those fans like they used to give at the funeral home and wave it like this.